discovery of and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, and considering that the discovery of America took place in 1492, I just couldn't understand that for 15 centuries no revelation had been made to the natives of America. So I tried to look for the presence of a prophet, because I was very interested in the stories of the prophets and messengers. And I made personal studies and comparisons between their stories in the Quran and in the Old and New Testaments. And I looked for books everywhere, wherever I went. In countries like Egypt or any other countries, I looked for books about the prophets and messengers, and I tried to find any document that could relate them to a possible visit of the American continent.
It's an
And
interesting, Samira, that is a very interesting thought. In fact, uh, about 15 or 20 years ago, that was my dominant thought. Why it didn't the Quran, didn't the revelations of both Bible, Torah, and Quran, or even the Indian books, never mentioned about the existence of another population in Americas? They didn't know anything about Americas until, I would say, 1492 is one of the point milestones. But much before that, Native Americans were here from the 11th century and before. So what you're saying is very interesting. Please go ahead, and that you were researching about prophets in Egypt and other places.
and so excuse me, just a second. I just changed my. And so I kept on making my researches until I fell upon a documentary that had been made by Michael Cremo and Richard Thompson, who are researchers from the United States, and who made a comparative analysis of the myths and of the religions of the Native Americans. And they pointed at certain points that made me understand that they knew about the about the flood, and about Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. And then I really started to make more researches, and then I fell upon documents in French libraries underlining the fact that the Arabic language was present in South America, and that when the researchers who had been sent by the church discovered certain things like languages or artifacts linked to the Arab and Muslim world, to the Arab world.
Do you
They,
remember, did the French libraries give a date when they discovered the language of Arabic in South America?
well, there are this happened in different countries of the South and North America, and through time, in fact, it was one of the great number of researchers who understood that the Arabic language was present in America. I can give you some of them who date back to the 16th, 17th centuries, and others who date back to the 19th centuries or the 18th centuries, and other ones who had been discovered in the middle of archaeological sites in the United States. Or in Colombia, or recently an American researcher, specialist in the Native American languages and Semitic languages, understood for years that the Arabic language was present, and it took him 40 years before publishing his work, and he was worried about the way people would react to his discoveries. But personally, I had also made researches in Native American dictionaries, and I understood and I found out that there were many terms and verbs and expressions who came straight from the Arabic language.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, yeah. So it's I even went to the university in order to learn the Mayan language, and during my first lesson of Maya, I learned that in order to say to someone, come on, come, you have
Mhm.
to say ta'ala just like in Arabic. And
Yes,
when I told my teacher, do you mean that when we want someone to come, we tell him ta'ala? And she answered, yes. I told her, this is Arabic.
it is. It is.
Yes,
That's
yes,
very interesting.
yeah,
Uh, by the way, the Quran, as you and my search for why the American Indians were not mentioned in the Quran, but there is a general statement made by the Quran uh, to encompass all of it. Said to every nation and every tribe,
yeah,
we have sent messengers, and that's
yeah,
what the Quran says. And they, to me, the messenger simply means is a generic word, not necessarily the word prophet. The generic word which says in every community there is always an individual, whether it is a Hindu community, Muslim, Christians, Native American. If there is a conflict in that little town or in the whole state, there is always one wise man or wise woman who can make some statements to bring peace and harmony among conflicting ideas and conflicting people. And but we need to find, I know Muslims will have difficult time in recognizing, for example, in India, Lord Krishna, Rama, to be acknowledged as prophets, because that's what God has said. And then we need to find among Native Americans who held peace. And I think the idea is for Muslims to universalize, which is already a universal religion of Islam. Islam is not for Muslims, it is a guidance for humanity to create societies where every human can live in peace and security. And please go on. I think I was very curious to know your interest in Native Americans. And Bob Crane, the first Muslim ambassador from the United States, and also who held the highest position in the US government, working for Nixon and working for President Reagan and President Nixon. And he also headed the Native American banks and other things. He has done a tremendous amount of work. Can you tell me a little bit more about Bob Crane?
at what level? I mean, you mean about the work that we're doing,
Yeah, the
or what?
work you're doing about Muslims and Native Americans. This program is about Muslims.
Okay. Well, I would say that with Dr. Crane, we are trying to propose a new historiography to the world, to the researchers, as well as to the common reader, in order to understand that there is another version of history and that we must try to enlarge our horizon in order to understand that Islam is indeed a religion that was revealed to two worlds, in fact, to the universe, in fact, the universe of Al Jinn and that of Al Ins. So, if it has been revealed to Al Jinn and to the Ins, it means that the Native Americans had to be part of it, just like the whole world. I mean, it's
Yes,
not only limited to a certain region, like they pretend that it was only for Arabia or for North Africa or a part of Asia. No, it's not. I mean, you cannot read Islam on a map. Islam is in the hearts, and it can be in the hearts of people in America before 1492, just like it could be or it had to be in other parts of the world. I mean, we just cannot ignore the Quranic text, which is so clear about it. It's for everyone, and no city is destroyed unless a messenger has been sent to them. So, I mean, to the city or to its peoples. So,
the just let me add to that, Samira. The word Rabbul Alameen, we have limited it to the world, but it is the includes of all universes, everything that
yes,
is out there that we can see, imagine, and feel. And that's
yeah,
what the Alameen means. And throughout the Quran, I never found that it was for a specific group and tribe, as you mentioned, and it is for the Alamin, and it is a generic message. Those who believed created a group of their own called Muslims, but it is not a group of Muslims. It is whoever believes in three key things: that there is a creator, God. We can call it whatever name we want to. Number two, that we are accountable for our actions. Accountability involves everything that we talked about: being good to fellow beings, creating harmony and peace. And the third thing is accountability. That and I would say those two things, if somebody follows, he can be called the general term Muslim, not the political group of people who are called Muslims, but the generic term Muslims. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can say that what you say is right, but there's also another interpretation for me regarding this, is that when Allah says that He doesn't destroy any city or any people unless He has sent a messenger, it means for me that they had to know Isa alayhi salam just like they had to know Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. And given that these are the two most important messengers sent to humankind during the last centuries, they just had to know about their existence, just like they had to know about the seal of messengers, Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And so for me, it was the revelation under the form of a Quran that had to be revealed to the world. And that when you speak about the Native Americans religions, for example, you know that they were monotheists. And right now I was
They were
working on
monotheist, the Native
of
Americans.
course they were monotheists, and they just couldn't find any way to claim that the Native Americans were worshippers of any idols.
Well,
This
they
is
were. They
something
were.
that, I mean, let me give you, for example, because I was working on it just a few minutes ago.
You want to share?
Maybe not, because it's
Okay.
a book that I'm writing right now.
Okay.
And because I'm working in French and in English for Dr. Crane to read it again, because he will write the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we sorry, I have so many documents open.
After that, I will share you about my interaction with the Mayans in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Okay. Well, for example, this is James Adder writing about the Cherokees and about the Native Americans, and
Mm-hmm.
he says that they do not pay the least perceivable adoration to any images or to dead persons, neither to the celestial luminaries, nor evil spirits, nor any created being whatsoever. They are utter strangers to all the gestures practiced by the pagans in their religious rites. They kiss no idols, nor if they were placed out of their reach, would they kiss their hands or in token of reverence and dwell in obedience. But the Native Americans pay only a civil regard to the sun, and they do not try to make any image of the Creator. It's totally forbidden. So for people who every school book depicts as being pagans, it's quite astonishing to see that the books that are written on them about those who lived among them, or about written by those who are experts in history or in anthropology or in any important field in these disciplines, highlight the fact that they were not pagans, that they were monotheists. So how come, for example, in the case of the Cherokees, did President Theodore Roosevelt decide in 1905 that he had to abolish the Cherokee religion, knowing that it was supposed to be known as being monotheist. But in fact, it was monotheist, but it was Islam. It was about Islam.
Interesting, very interesting. Talking about Theodore Roosevelt banning the Cherokee Nation as a religion, in 2006, the Wicca, which is a native tradition of Europe, they were not allowed to put their headstone in the Arlington Cemetery. So there were many Wiccans. I'm friends with a lot of Wiccans. I'm involved in all the religious groups. And until then, President Bush was asked to sign authorizing placing the Wicca symbol, which is basically a star, on the graves of the soldiers, American soldiers who died in the wars. Finally, I was part of that movement. We pushed it hard, and finally, President Bush, this junior one, signed the document. And today there are symbols of Wicca in the Arlington Cemetery, which is a national cemetery. So it takes a lot of effort to change that. And has anybody reversed Theodore Roosevelt's ruling about banning the Native America, the Cherokee Nation as a religious group?
What do you mean?
Reversed his decision, the president's.
Well, you know that the great grand uncle of Dr. Crane was among the last imams of the Cherokee Nation.
His great grand, I didn't know that.
Uncle, yes, he was one of them, and he was imprisoned for 2 years in Oklahoma, and then he ran away and went to the western states of the United States in order to try to convince different nations and tribes to bond together in order to ask for a freedom of religion and freedom also of government, and none of them accepted. And he finally decided to do as the Hopis, so to protect his religion and to keep it secret in order to protect also himself.
Yeah.
And you know that in the West, in Nevada, for example, the archaeologists discovered the name of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, written in Kufi, in a Kufic style, in the middle of the desert. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not.
So it was written Muhammad Nabiullah.
You have any documentation on that you can share?
Yes, but not now.
No, I understand. I understand, because I want to share this. Most Muslims, I don't know if any Muslim in America knows about this documentation you are talking about.
I'm sure they know about it, because when Barry Farrell discovered these archaeological sites, at first they thought that it was Native Americans according to the way we perceive the Native Americans, and then they realized that it was Arabic and that it was written Muhammad Nabiullah, and that they discovered that these sites were dated back to a period of time previous to 1492, and it was apparently during the 7th century.
Seventh
century, yes, 7th century. And when he spoke about it, he was literally attacked by the media of that time, and they said they wrote about him very bad things, saying that he wanted to please the religious people, which was completely unfair and untrue, because he was a professor from Harvard, and he was working at the same time with professors from the University of California. And they found also the name of Isa ibn Maryam written also in Kufic, letters in California. And this is something I spoke about when I had been invited by the association, Muslim Christian Association in France, at the Sacré-Cœur, the famous church in Paris. And I highlighted the fact that the Prophet Isa alayhi salam and his mother had been their names had been written on the rocks, on petroglyphs in California, and that the researchers, the experts, underlined the fact that it had to be the Muslims, because only the Muslims would speak about Isa alayhi salam, about Jesus, as being the son of Maryam, because the Christians would say that he is the son of God.
Precisely.
Yeah, and so there were also many other facts and many other discoveries that highlighted this Arab and Muslim presence, or this Arab presence, because it was also at the time previous to Islam, before the advent of Islam. For example, in Colombia, they discovered
Colombia, there is a nation in South America.
Yes, there is a connection in Mesoamerica, in South America, and in Brazil, for example. The name Brazil comes from a North African tribe, Brazil. And this has been highlighted by the Muslim scholar Muhammad Hamidullah.
That was in Turkey, right? Muhammad Hamidullah was in Turkey?
No, he's an Indian scholar.
Yes, he was, but he taught in Turkey. And one of my friends, Imam Zia Kawachiki, was his student.
Okay. No, he was also a lot in Paris, in France, and also many of my acquaintances knew him, and and he was also their teacher. So I think that he taught a lot in many countries, because he was such a nice person, and he had so much to teach to people. And it was also discovered in the 19th century in Colombia, and the site was named Hiraqa, which made the link with the Iraq in Mesopotamia, and they discovered that the populations spoke Arabic. This is something that you cannot find in manuals of history that are given to pupils in schools or in universities. And there are also other eyewitnesses who visited Guatemala. Guatemala, yes, Al-Wadi al-Malah. In fact, this is the meaning of their name. And
what is the meaning?
Al-Wadi al-Malah.
What does it mean?
The salted river.
Wow.
Al-Wad.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And they discovered that the populations in Guatemala were Arabs, dressed like the Arabs of Al-Maghreb al-Arabi. Al-Amir Abdul Qadir was dressed in white.
I didn't know
the white dress of Al-Amir Abdul Qadir. The Algerian leader. Al-Amir Abdul Qadir.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
You see his dress in white.
Yes.
Well, they were dressed the same way in Guatemala.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and it was written by a French churchman.
You have done quite thorough research about Native Americans.
Yes.
And what I would like to do is in the next few weeks, we will broadcast. I need your picture and a small bio, so we can gather up American Muslims to hear about the story of Islam in America.
Okay.
And in the 7th century, we had the name inscribed Muhammad Nabiullah on the rocks in Nevada as well as in California. That is a very interesting fact, Samira. Few things I want to share, which we were talking about the Maya Indians. It's about 200 square miles peninsula there. And there, my friend Marianne Thompson Frank, who is a speaker in the links I have sent to you, we did a full-blown program on Native American genocide about 10 years ago. And we had different speakers to speak about Native Americans. Mary Ann Thompson is deeply involved with the Native Americans, and she and I have met the Cherokee, just about 10 different tribes and their leaders. There is one in Arizona. I'm trying to think the name of the tribe. Then I also went to Oklahoma, met the Native American chief, the Cherokee chief there. He dressed me up in the feather hat as
Mm-hmm.
well. I'll
Mm-hmm.
send that picture to you one of these days.
Okay.
So Mayans, what we found out was Mayans did not have hospital for about 200 square miles. So the only treatment the Native Americans got, the Mayan Americans, was the shamans using herbs and shrubs making medicines. So they were running out of those. So Mary Ann Thompson, my friend, who and I founded the Memnozine Foundation, she bought 2 acres of land and we donated herbs to grow there. So on the grand opening, 15 of us went there and opened the medicine. Then the doctor, she and I spent a few times. She barely spoke English, but we still got along. And she and I we looked at. She has a room, a big room, full of medicine cabinets, all made from the herbs grown in that garden. And she was telling me there is a medicine for cancer, medicine for headache, all of those Native American herbs. It's more like the Unani, as we call it, Unani medicine or Ayurvedic, which is a Hindu tradition medicine. And they had their own tradition. So we went there. And the most interesting thing was we spent time with the chief, the Mayan chief there. And we went to the uh, God, I can't think of the name. The main temple for the Mayans, Teotihuacan,
Chichen Itza.
Chichen Itza. And the Mexican government had banned Native Mayan Americans to go worship on that Chichen Itza
Okay.
temple. So I took the group. I said, let's go pray. And the police, the Mayan chief said they will not allow us. And I said, why will not? Why would it is your place? Why shouldn't they be allowing you to worship there? He said, well, let's not try. I said, no, let's go. Let's try it. So I led the group of about 15 people to go on the Chichen Itza hill, the pyramid. The police stopped us. They said they will arrest me. I said, go ahead and make my day. I used the Clint Eastwood dialogue. And I said, no, we are going to go and pray there. Do what you want, but we are going there. You just watch us or you can join us. They were really taken by back because nobody had challenged them. So we went up on the pyramid and we held interfaith prayers. And the interesting thing there, Samira,
Beautiful.
was there were no Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, and Jews in the group. Only Christians, Mayans, uh, the other one. There were two other tribes that had joined us, and I was there. And so I have prayers from all religious scriptures. So I prayed in Jewish, Jain, and Hindus to be more inclusive, even though they were not there. We didn't want to exclude them. We did this, and the police was standing down, way down the hill, and looking at us. And not only that, one of our African American Christian members, he lit the fire, which there is a picture of me there. We did that. Finally, we found out in Guatemala and Belize, they are the Mayans are banned to speak their language. They have to speak only Spanish.
Yeah.
So Marianne is working on those, and she's trying. We did a seminar also in Dallas in 2005. There is a movie made about it, bringing about 40 different Native American tribes from Alaska, all the way from Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Guatemala, and Mexico, and of course, the United States, including the Dakotan, North and South Dakotan tribes. It was an eye opening thing to listen about what was done to them over a period of time. So I have sent you some links, the video links of the program we did. And I think I will send you some pictures of being there in on Mayan territory and at the Chichen Itza. So have you been there?
Okay. Yeah, I was there recently. I was there in at the end of March.
This year?
Before go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Before going to the United States.
Did you meet
Uh,
did you meet the chief priest of Mayans?
no.
I have connections with all of them if you like to connect. I think Bob Crane asked me, and I'm going to connect Marianne with them. I know all the tribes, I have all their emails, but Marianne would be a source for all the Native Americans in Americas, and I will connect you with her.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I have met with Mayans in Cancun, where I was staying,
Hmm.
and we started to discuss about my presence in Mexico. And she was very interested, and she told me, you know, that the history of our people is not being taught in schools. It is forbidden, and
Yes,
it was only allowed by the recent presidents.
yes.
And this is amazing, as if they didn't want them to have any link with their past,
Hmm.
though separate them from their past, because they have kept their language.
Yes,
And you
yes,
know, the Mayans speak their language more than they speak Spanish,
yes.
and this is very important, and it will keep them alive at a certain level.
Uh-huh.
And a few days ago, I have made a conference in France, and there was a Mexican among the participants. And you know what she told me? You know, she told me, as a Mexican, I felt there was something linking me to the Arab world, but I didn't understand it, because she has been also to Morocco,
Hmm.
and she discovered that there was some similarities that she couldn't explain. So when she heard what I was talking about during my conference, she came at the end, after everybody came to speak to me and to ask me questions, and she told me, you know, you answered many of my questions, because
Great.
now I have made the link.
And the consul general of Mexico to Dallas, Texas, his name is Salim Ali, and I thought he was a Muslim. I asked him; he didn't know anything about it, but he said the name Salim and Ali is in my family tradition, and there are people with names like Muhammad in Mexico. They don't know they are Muslims, and also I think I have a video of the Amazon tribe, Native American. I don't know if you can call them Native Americans, but Native American tribe in Amazon celebrating Ramadan. There is a video someplace. I will share that video as well.
That would be great. Maybe this has something to do with the Mandingo
What is
from the
Mandingo?
empire. Mandingo are members of the Mali Empire,
Hmm.
and they sailed in the name of Allah during the 14th century, and they crossed the ocean. And when historians speak about them, they pretend that their ships sank in the ocean. In reality, they didn't sink in the ocean. They had been driven to the American continent by the Gulf Stream,
Hmm.
and there were artifacts who had been discovered in Brazil, and who are part now of the collections of the Brazilian museums.
Hmm.
There was also a professor from Harvard, whose name is Leo Wiener,
Yes.
who studied deeply the languages of the Native Americans, and then linked with the Arabic language and the African dialects, Black African dialects.
Hmm.
And he also discovered that there was a Mandingo presence among the dialects of the Native Americans,
Interesting.
which proves that, in fact, they did arrive to the American continent long before Columbus.
Yes. Yes. Let me turn to another topic. July 4th is coming here in the few weeks, a week or two. And the most important thing about July 4th is when America was uh, declared as a sovereign nation in 1776, there were three nations that recognized America. Among those three, one was Netherlands, of course, the king of Netherlands. The other two were the Moroccan king and the king of Mysore, which is was a country in India, which is a part of India now, called Tipu Sultan. These two Muslims were the first among the first three to recognize the sovereignty of America. Not only that, Tipu Sultan sent a letter to George Washington congratulating him, and that letter is in a French library. I don't know which library it is. French library. If you have access,
I
could you
have access.
trace that? And also, Tipu Sultan, which is the king of Mysore, he and Washington corresponded with each other. I'm trying to find the documentation, and I was told by a researcher in Karnataka, in my state. I'm from Bangalore. In my state, that Tipu Sultan actually sent some funding to George Washington's army at that time fighting the British, because Georgia, the Wellesley, the Viceroy Wellesley, lost to George Washington here in the United States. Then he went and fought two wars. Of the four wars, I think he fought two wars with Tipu Sultan, and he was defeated in the first one, but lost. Tipu Sultan was lost in the fourth war with the British at that time. So there are a lot of histories. So if there is a documentation that Tipu Sultan funded George Washington, what I would like to do as an American Muslim, put a statue of Tipu Sultan somewhere in the Washington D.C. area to highlight that Muslims has a presence in America from very inception.
Okay. Okay, I will make my researches in at the French National Library or their archives. Okay, and I will let you know. I go very often to the French Library, almost 2 or 3 times a week.
Mhm.
So I will focus on this, inshallah, during the next few days. And do you know that the U.S. Navy had been created in order to face with the Algerian Navy?
Yes, yes, I remember that. I think the Moroccan treaty with the U.S. was also the first treaty U.S. had signed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the Algerian Regency was very powerful, and more powerful than the Moroccan or Tunisian or Tripolitan ones,
I
because
didn't know that.
yes, and the Algerians just drove crazy the Americans,
Hmm.
and President Jefferson tried to. Because their documents, of course, have been unveiled. They are no more confidential.
Hmm.
And I found some interesting and fascinating text written by President Jefferson regarding the Algerians, saying that they had to change the personalities of the Algerians because they were really very powerful, and they wanted them to concentrate on agriculture and no more on the sea or any anything related to wars. And they were so and I'm writing a book on the subject, so this is the
Well, good.
reason I'm telling you about it. Yeah, I focus mostly on the maritime history of the world, because it was the mean of transport of that time for a very long time, well, until the 20th century. And so everything happened in the seas and the oceans. So if we want to have a closer look to what really happened, we have to take into consideration the maritime world, which is the most important one.
Wow. Can I have Can I get those books from you? Because I think I want to study about Native Americans. And when we do the programs, I should be able to speak from the book and ask some questions to you. And American Muslims, I'm very involved with American Muslims throughout the United States.
Mhm.
And many of them they know about the presence of Muslims in Americas, but they really don't know the history that you know. I have no idea why it was not brought up here. I'm so glad to hear what you're talking about. So Tipu
Thank you.
Sultan is one thing, and the second thing is let's talk briefly about Muslims in France and the politics of exclusion that the French government has practiced. What is it that makes Muslims live in their own little colonies, mini colonies, instead of being part of the mainstream? In contrast to American Muslims who live amidst everybody, where we don't have separate areas of Muslims only, but we live amidst everybody. And that has allowed more integration, less conflict, although if you conflict, you hear about it, but that is far fewer than what is good out here. So can you talk about a little bit?
Of course, I have been invited a few months ago to talk about the problem that we have in France
Mhm.
as Muslims, and I highlighted the fact that the Arabs and Muslims, before anyone else, do not know about their presence on this continent and on this region of the world, France,
Mhm.
long before the foundation of the very kingdom of France. So the Arabs founded Marseille, the famous city of Marseille in southern France, and even the name is Marsa al, which means the port of Allah.
This is very interesting
And
information.
yes, and many cities in southern France have a Muslim or an Arab name, like Ramatuel, which means Rahmatullah, Al Buhaira in the Basque region. No, I mean, it's just crazy. And when the journalists told me, is it because they are teaching them this that they hate so much the Muslims and the Arabs? I said no. In fact, they don't teach this information. These information are found only in academic books. They don't find them in manuals of history. No, most people here in France do not know that the Arabs were in southern France before Christianity. They don't know that the Arabs and Muslims were here in France ever since the 7th century, which means long before the foundation of the Kingdom of France. They don't know that the Arabs and Muslims were the ones who protected the French and the Christians from their co-religionists from the north. I mean, all this part of the Arab and Muslim history in France has been ignored by books of history. So when you take a look at it, and you just can't accept what they are saying, because they speak of the Arabs and the Muslims as if they were newcomers in France and that they came after the independence of Algeria. Or no, we were here first. I mean, this is something that people don't
Wow.
know. Yes, we were
Yes.
here first.
So what we want to do, I think what we can do is between you, Dr. Crane, and Mary Ann Thompson, we can we can get together and figure out about the Native Americans, Islam in Native America, and maybe work on allowing them to worship their own way of worshiping, and the ban or the restriction should be uplifted. That is in Mexico, Belize, and as you say, in Guatemala and Colombia. We need to work on that. That may be one small project. It may take some time to get to the United Nations, but we can work on that one. And second one is about Tipu Sultan. If you can find the research, the name is Tipu Sultan. In fact,
Can you write me the name exactly, the name of Al Sultan, and the more, I mean, as many information as you have, could you send them to me so that I have a written text I can rely on when I make researches? Because it's just a question also of etymology. When they write a name, they do not write it always the same way. So I have to keep on. Well, I'm used to making researches, so it's better if you send me as many information as you have so that I can
I
find
will.
them.
I will. In fact, I wrote an article about July 4th and the importance to Muslims way back about 7 or 8 years ago. All in a sudden, that article has appeared in Moroccan papers, Algerian papers, Egyptians,
Mm-hmm.
Saudi, and all other papers because it was a new information for them. Even Muslims didn't know about this. So we did that. And that article I will share. I think if you might just, if you put type my name and Tipu Sultan. I will send you the links.
Okay,
You will
okay,
find plenty of articles written by me and fellow some of the other Muslims. So that
okay.
one, and then we will talk. We will have a conversation about politics, Muslim politics in France, because here what we are trying to do is learn about Islam and Muslims around the world. It is a small group of people, about 20, but we are going to increase the group as we talk with the people from different faiths. At one time in my group, we had a Tibetan Muslims as well, but I cannot find them back again. They moved out of it. So there are Muslims every place, just we don't know that. And we
Yeah,
didn't
do you
know
know?
about, I'm sorry,
Excuse me. Do you know about the Chiapas? The Muslims
Chiapas.
from Chiapas, yes, from Mexico?
No, I didn't know that.
No, they returned to Islam.
They did.
Yes,
Wow.
because they remembered that there were some rituals that had links with their Islamic ancestors, and so all of them converted. I mean, a whole village and reconverted to Islam.
That is very interesting, Samira. And I think it has been a good conversation between us. I will place this
Okay.
on the YouTube, and we will plan on an event uh, for the other people to join us. Uh,
Okay.
we generally carry these Muslims together, politics, on every Sunday at the same time. Uh,
Okay.
and we are developing what does it take for Muslims to change uh, about what's happening to them in the United States and other democracies like Australia, UK, and other places. Two things that we have discovered and we have been talking and writing about is to be involved in the politics, to run for public offices from a small councils to county to state legislatures to the United States Congress and Senate. And we have set a goal, our group, and I have written that in the book American Muslim Agenda, the book I wrote, to have at least 5 congressmen in 2024, Muslim congressmen, and at least one Muslim senator. And we are trying to work up different people. We are having conversations and we are offering training, reaching out to the people. I think this can also be among the French. I know one of the education minister in France was a Muslim woman from Somalia, I believe, a refugee.
What I know, I don't know about him, but I know about a young man who recently converted to Islam, and who is running for the French presidential elections. And
Really?
yes, and his father used to work with the former president of France, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing,
Uh-huh.
and he discovered Islam and decided to convert. And he spoke about his conversion openly, saying that he was a Muslim now, and that it was his first Ramadan this year, and it was really, I mean, great. I met with him because he wanted to know more about history. So I told him, if you want to speak about Islam, if you want to speak about the presence of the Arabs and Muslims, or any foreigners here in France, you have to access the real version of history, and the truth is that the Arabs and the Muslims were here in France long before the foundation of the Kingdom of France. He was as astonished as many people
I'm
I
sure he
speak
was.
about.
So he's running for what year is he running? When is he?
President,
What year?
for president.
Yeah. Which is it he going to run? Is the elections next year or this year?
Yes, yeah,
Next
for
year?
next year. Yes.
Next year. And this is, I think we may have to talk about that topic. There
Okay.
is a Muslim mayor in London, and I think we got Muslim congressmen in the US. Of course, India was a great example for a long time. I mean, in the last 7 or 8 years, India has really messed up completely. We had in India Muslim presidents. There were 3 Muslim presidents, and Muslims are very involved in politics, and they are saying, but nothing is happening with Muslims now. They're pushed back, and we are working with whatever we can work to see Muslims regain their influence, regain, become participants and contributors of the Indian society again. So we have a large swath of topics to talk about Muslims in France. This is really the greatest news I have heard. I will share that with my groups.
Okay.
And you can you spell his name?
Alexi Troyullis.
Alexi
T-R Alexi Troyullis. Troyullas.
Troyullis.
Yeah.
Troyullis. Oh, how do you pronounce?
Troyullis.
Troyus.
Troyullis. Yeah.
Troyus.
Troya. Troya. Yeah.
This would be a shock to Muslims in America.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, well, when I spoke to him about a different subject, I said, I mean, do you realize that, I mean, you converted to Islam, and do you believe that they are going to let you be the president of France? And his response was very interesting.
What was it?
His response was that Allah is the best strategist.
There you go. There you go. I think when Barack Obama was elected president, the entire world cried, including me. I wrote about it because what it sent a message to the world is if you're a minority, you can be the top man in the government, but you have to speak the language of inclusion. If you start
Exactly.
they to the majority and us, then it will never make it. We should it all be we the Americans, we the French people, we the Australians. If Muslims can move in that direction of inclusion, real inclusion, I never say, well, they Americans, they white people. No, no, we are all Americans. If this gentleman, Alexi Troyullis, adapts. Well, he's a convert, so his language definitely would be inclusive,
Yeah.
and and that
Exactly. That's how it works.
and that would definitely. I hope he wins, and that will.
Inshallah.
Oh, with that note, we got about 4 minutes left. I would like you to make a few summary statements about Muslims in France and Native American Muslims.
I believe that if the Muslims in France were aware of their historical heritage in France, they would run to elect their future president as a Muslim president, or anyone who would be indeed inclusive and not try to put them aside as if they were newcomers. As for the Native Americans, I believe that for their own survival, they have also to go back to history in order to reach for their roots.
Yes.
Their roots, and prepare their future, because of course their past is very difficult to bear, because even myself as someone who lives far from the American continent,
Mm-hmm.
when I read about the genocide of the Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
it keeps on hurting me a lot, because it's something that's so much linked with the humankind, and I just cannot accept that the Muslim scholars kept them aside of their writings, as if they were killed a second time through our own pens, through our own versions of history. And this is something that I'm trying to do with Dr. Crane, try to reinsert their presence on the map of the world long before 1492.
Inshallah, I think
Inshallah.
I will connect you with Marianne Thompson, and she is a great supporter of Native Americans, and she will be a good asset to be with us. And
Inshallah.
I will commit to do my share of the work, and
Okay, thank you.
in re-establishing the role of Native American Islam in Native American.
Inshallah.
Thank
Inshallah.
you so much, Samira. And I will post
Thank you.
this at the website called in the YouTube. All you have to do is youtube.com slash Center for Pluralism, but I'll send you the link.
Okay, thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.